The more you push, the more life slips away. Have you noticed that the more you try to control life, the more chaotic it becomes? The harder you chase peace, the more distant it feels. The tighter you hold on, the more it all slips through your hands. You wake up already tense, not from anything that's actually happening, but from the invisible pressure of holding together a life that feels more like performance than truth. Before your feet even touch the floor, your mind has already sprinted miles ahead, rehearsing conversations, replaying old regrets, and anxiously crafting scenarios that have yet to exist. You tell yourself it's preparation, a form of protection. If you can just see every outcome clearly enough, then perhaps nothing can truly hurt you. And so your mornings begin not with presence, but with panic, carefully disguised as productivity. You reach for your phone, check messages that don't matter, scroll through feeds that leave you emptier than before, and measure your worth against an endless flood of curated perfection. You make lists, chase deadlines, check boxes, all before you've taken a moment to truly breathe. And beneath all of this frantic motion lies the quiet, aching fear that whispers when everything goes silent for just a second. If I stop trying, I'll lose everything. But what if the very thing you're afraid to lose is the one thing keeping you from coming home? So instead of letting go, you try harder. You double down, grip tighter, and hold on more fiercely to the illusion of control. And life, like a bird you've trapped in your grip, begins to struggle more violently. The tighter your fist closes, the faster it beats its wings, desperate to escape the weight of your expectations. And soon, you're left with empty palms, a racing heart, and a mind that won't stop spinning, questioning why the harder you push, the less life seems to cooperate. You've been taught, convinced even, that this constant striving, this never-ending state of exhaustion, is what success is supposed to feel like. You've been told that if you're not utterly drained, if you're not waking up tired, if you're not giving everything until you feel completely hollow, then you must not want it badly enough. But deep within you, beneath all the layers of conditioning, something has started to shift. You're beginning to wonder why all the things that are supposed to fulfill you only leave you emptier, more fragmented, and more disconnected from who you really are. Because the deeper truth is this: you were never meant to live your life locked in a perpetual state of force and friction. There is a natural rhythm, a subtle and powerful current that runs through everything, guiding life effortlessly toward growth and healing. This current doesn't respond to desperation or fear. It responds to alignment, trust, and gentle surrender. And the more you resist that rhythm, the more fiercely life resists you back. Not because you're flawed, or because life is punishing you, but because force is the language of fear, and flow is the language of trust. Deep inside, you already know this. You've caught glimpses of this truth in fleeting moments of clarity, times when you finally let go and allowed life to breathe, when you stepped back and witnessed something beautiful unfolding without your interference. You've felt it when you surrendered control for just a brief moment and discovered that life could hold you far better than your grip ever could. Remember those moments when you stopped obsessing and clarity simply found you? When you let go of that relationship and the right person effortlessly walked into your life? When you gave up on pushing yourself into a role that never truly fit, and suddenly, for the first time in ages, you felt at home inside your own skin again? Perhaps life isn't asking you to exert more effort or to push even harder. Perhaps it's asking you to surrender the version of yourself that believes you must constantly earn your worth through exhaustion and sacrifice. Maybe the voice you've been dismissing as laziness isn't laziness at all. Maybe it's the quiet wisdom of your soul, reminding you that trust will always carry you further than tension ever could. What if your greatest power isn't found in how fiercely you push forward, but in how gently you can pause? Not in breaking down every door, but in finally realizing that the doors meant for you never required force to begin with. They were always meant to open effortlessly, in their own time. When you finally stopped demanding that life conform to your fear-driven timeline. Imagine for just a moment what life could feel like if you stopped chasing so hard. If you allowed yourself the space to breathe, to rest, to simply exist without needing every moment to justify itself through achievement or productivity. Imagine the quiet freedom waiting for you on the other side of control, the deep peace that only arrives when you trust yourself enough to loosen your grip. Because the truth is, life was never trying to escape you. It was waiting patiently for you to stop running, stop striving, stop fighting the very flow that was always there to carry you forward. And maybe, just maybe, the moment you decide to let go is the exact moment life finally finds its way back to you. You don't reach for control because you're arrogant. You reach for it because some hidden part of you is terrified of what might happen the moment you finally let go. You plan every detail meticulously, rehearse every conversation, analyze every silence. Because somewhere deep inside, beneath the logical explanations and carefully crafted justifications, you're afraid that without control, life might collapse around you. It's not power you're after. It's safety. It's the quiet reassurance that if you just prepare enough, become flawless enough, please everyone around you enough, then maybe, just maybe, you can avoid the inevitable pain of uncertainty. And who could blame you? Because at some point along your journey, someone or something convinced you that life isn't safe unless it's carefully managed, measured, and controlled, that peace is something you earn through planning and worry, and that the unknown is a place too dangerous to trust. You learned early on that chaos is painful, uncertainty is scary, and unpredictability often hurts. So you responded in the only way you knew how, by gripping tighter, planning harder, and seeking control wherever you could find it. Eventually, control became your comfort zone. The meticulous plans became your security blanket. The predictable outcomes became your prayers whispered in the dark, and certainty became the altar you knelt before every single day. But here's the quiet, uncomfortable truth no one ever mentions when you first start walking down this path. What feels like protection eventually becomes a prison. You're not creating peace. You're constructing walls. Walls that isolate you from the very thing you crave the most: true connection, genuine joy, and the freedom to breathe deeply without fear that the next exhale might shatter everything you've worked so hard to maintain. But control is clever. It doesn't reveal its price immediately. It flatters your ego, gently applauds your caution, and even rewards you just enough to keep you believing that it's actually helping you. Yet beneath that shiny surface of temporary relief, something far more valuable is quietly slipping away. Your freedom, your sense of presence, your innate ability to move through your days without a constant ache in your chest or a silent storm brewing behind your eyes. You think if you grip the wheel tighter, the road ahead will somehow straighten itself out, clearer, safer, easier. But some roads were never designed to be perfectly straight, predictable, or free from uncertainty. Some roads curve suddenly, disappear into the mist, or lead you places you never even imagined wanting to go. And it's often only when you finally loosen your grip, trusting something beyond your immediate sight, that you discover there was a deeper rhythm carrying you all along, guiding your steps even when you felt utterly lost. Control isn't the same thing as clarity. It isn't the same as strength or wisdom. Control is the illusion you reach for when you don't trust yourself enough to handle whatever might come your way. And trust feels terrifying when your entire life has been lived, bracing for impact, always waiting for the next problem, the next heartbreak, the next disappointment to arrive. But here's what most people never stop long enough to realize. The safety you're desperately seeking won't ever come from predicting every outcome. It won't come from mapping every scenario or eliminating every risk. True safety, the kind that grounds you even when life is spinning wildly out of control, comes from knowing deep in your bones that no matter what chaos finds you, you will still be standing afterward, still breathing, still worthy, still undeniably enough. Maybe the invitation life is offering you now isn't to become more prepared or more rigidly organized. Maybe life isn't asking you for greater perfection or higher productivity. Maybe, just maybe, it's inviting you into something simpler, but infinitely more courageous, to become fully present, to finally notice how much energy you spend, anticipating pain that may never come, and how many precious moments you sacrifice at the altar of false certainty. Maybe life is gently whispering for you to recognize that control never provided genuine security. It merely gave your anxiety something to hold on to. Loosen your grip, not because letting go guarantees perfect outcomes, but because you're exhausted from living like happiness can only be earned through relentless suffering. Trust that the unknown won't break you, that it may even heal you in ways your rigid plans never could. The road ahead was never fully yours to pave with certainty. Sometimes it bends unpredictably. Sometimes it disappears into the unknown. And sometimes it leads you precisely where your soul was always meant to go. But the catch is this: those beautiful, unexpected destinations only reveal themselves when your hands are open wide enough to receive them, because life, at its very core, wasn't built for perfect planning. It was designed for profound trust. And perhaps the only thing standing between you and the deep peace you crave is your willingness to stop demanding certainty from a life that was always meant to be lived in beautiful, messy mystery. Letting go isn't giving up, it's coming home. Letting go doesn't begin with peace, it begins with panic. The moment your fingers start to loosen around the thing you once believed you couldn't survive without, your mind protests with a sharp rush of anxiety. Your heart pounds against your ribs, and every instinct inside of you screams to hold on tighter, even if it's hurting you, even if it's draining you, because the act of letting go feels too much like admitting defeat, like losing everything you worked so hard to maintain. But sometimes, often in ways we can't yet fully understand, what feels like loss in the moment is actually liberation disguised in uncertainty. It's the beginning of freedom, wrapped in a gentle whisper of fear. I remember holding on desperately to a relationship that had slowly drifted into a silent, lifeless space. We weren't fighting, weren't arguing. We were fading, quietly disappearing into routines, into predictable conversations, into empty rituals of togetherness. And yet, I kept pushing. I kept trying harder, giving more, twisting myself into shapes I thought might finally fit, believing that if I could just find the right words, the right gesture, the right moment, perhaps I could revive something that was already long gone. But the harder I pushed, the more distant we became. Each effort to reconnect only served to widen the gap between us, until one day, sitting across from each other in a quiet conversation that felt more like obligation than genuine connection, I felt something shift within me. There were no profound realizations in that moment. No dramatic declarations, just a single breath, deeper and calmer than any I had taken in months. I simply stopped. I stopped trying to fill the silence. I stopped trying to hold the pieces together, and in that quiet pause, I finally understood something I had avoided for far too long. I wasn't losing this person, I was reclaiming myself. We often remain in places that feel familiar, even if they are painful, simply because the known hurt feels safer than the unknown freedom waiting on the other side. We cling tightly to jobs that drain our spirit, relationships that dim our light, and dreams that were shaped by someone we no longer recognize, not because these things still nourish us, but because we've forgotten who we might be without them. We grip fiercely to familiarity because our greatest fear isn't losing the thing itself, it's losing our identity, our sense of belonging, our very definition of safety. And yet, deep down, beneath the layers of fear and habit, something in us knows the truth. The things that are truly meant for us never ask us to betray ourselves to keep them. They never require us to abandon our authenticity, silence our intuition, or shrink into a smaller, safer shape just to earn the right to stay. Letting go isn't giving up. It's an act of deep courage, a gentle rebellion against the illusion that your value depends on how long you can endure discomfort. It's choosing truth over comfort, authenticity over approval, and inner peace over outer validation. It's recognizing that sometimes the strongest, bravest choice you can make is to release what no longer aligns with your heart, even if you don't yet know what comes next. You were never meant to earn your peace through endless striving. You were never created to carry burdens that were never yours to bear alone, and you certainly weren't designed to measure your worth by how much you can endure or how many times you can betray yourself to keep something together. Your purpose is not to suffer endlessly in silence. Your purpose is to breathe freely, deeply, and authentically. Letting go is far from passive. It's profoundly active. It's a conscious return to presence, to honesty, to the quiet center of your being that knows who you are. Beyond the chaos of trying to please and perfect and perform, it's about returning to the place inside you that measures your worth not by what stays or leaves, but by how courageously you honor your own becoming. No, it doesn't always feel good initially. Often it feels like standing at the edge of a life you once understood clearly, gazing out into a future shrouded in uncertainty. It can feel like surrendering a carefully drawn map and stepping forward into an unfamiliar landscape, guided only by the soft whisper of intuition telling you, this isn't working anymore. Something has to change. But that quiet voice isn't random or reckless. It's the voice of your truest self, calling you gently and persistently home, back to your breath, back to your clarity, back to the you who never needed to force what wasn't meant for you, who never needed to shrink to fit into spaces too small to hold your true spirit. Letting go isn't the end. It's a doorway, an opening, a pathway home. And once you step through, once you choose authenticity over effort, surrender over struggle, and presence over performance, you finally begin to realize something deeply comforting and transformative. Peace was never something you had to fight to achieve. It was the place you belonged, patiently waiting for you all along. When you flow, life flows back. You were never meant to force what was always meant to flow, never meant to fight endlessly, just to feel like you have permission to exist within your own life. And maybe that's the quiet lesson that life keeps patiently placing in your path, over and over again. That real growth, true peace, lasting fulfillment, they never come as a result of constant tension, endless struggle, or relentless pressure. Instead, life responds powerfully and profoundly to your willingness to simply be present. Think about those rare, quiet moments when you stopped trying so desperately to bend reality to your will. Think of those gentle, seemingly ordinary moments when you stopped auditioning for a piece that already belonged to you and instead allowed yourself to simply exist within the stillness. Remember how in those moments, everything seemed to soften, to quiet, to open up around you in ways you hadn't noticed before. Because when you finally release the grip of control, you begin to see again, not through the strained, anxious eyes of someone desperate to manage every outcome, but through the calm, open eyes of someone who understands that life can never be truly experienced through force alone. You start noticing the subtle details again, the small, unremarkable miracles that were always there, waiting patiently beneath the noise. You feel the sun on your skin, warm and gentle, no longer just a background element to a hurried day, but a quiet reminder of life's simple generosity. You hear your own voice clearly again, unforced and honest, the right words emerging naturally without needing to rehearse or strategize every sentence. You realize that the people who truly see you, the ones who value your heart beyond your productivity, beyond your carefully crafted image, were always there, just beyond the walls of the performance you've spent your entire life maintaining. In this stillness, you stop running, not because you've given up or lost hope, but because you finally understand there's nowhere else to run except inward. And inward is exactly the direction you've always needed to travel. This is where true flow begins, in the subtle act of returning to yourself, in the gentle realignment of your soul to something deeper, calmer, and infinitely wiser than the anxious voice that once told you happiness had to be earned, chased, or fought for. This flow isn't passive, it's profoundly intentional. It's a quiet but powerful reconnection to the deeper current of life, a current that has always existed beneath the chaos, beneath your fears, and beneath every restless attempt to prove your worth. Flow doesn't mean you abandon your ambitions or discard your dreams. It doesn't mean you have no goals, no desires, no direction. It means you no longer sacrifice your soul in pursuit of them. It means your actions arise from trust instead of tension, from clarity instead of confusion, from love instead of lack. It means you finally understood that the path you walk isn't a race to some distant destination. It's a sacred journey back to your truest self. And when you finally begin moving from this deeper place, when you let go of the endless battle to control every outcome, you begin to notice something remarkable. Life starts moving towards you, meeting you halfway, not on your carefully scripted terms, not according to your anxious demands, but authentically, genuinely, in ways you couldn't have orchestrated or forced, even if you tried. Because when you soften your approach, life responds in kind. When you open your heart instead of gripping your fists, life fills the spaces you've created with opportunities, connections, and synchronicities that flow effortlessly toward you. You're no longer chasing desperately after what you want. Instead, you're attracting what is already meant for you. You're no longer begging for acceptance or validation. You're naturally aligning with people and experiences that truly honor your heart. And in this quiet shift, your questions begin to change. You're no longer frantically asking, how do I force this outcome? How can I make this happen right now? Instead, you ask something infinitely more powerful, more insightful, more transformative. What in me needs to become still, so that everything meant for me can finally arrive? Because here's the deep truth that you've been sensing all along. Life has never been withholding anything from you. It has always been trying to reach you, guide you, support you, but it simply couldn't find you amidst the constant noise, the endless striving, the persistent belief that you had to fight your way into happiness and peace. Now that you've finally slowed down, now that you've courageously loosened your grip, life knows exactly where you are. And maybe, just maybe, in this moment of softening, of surrender, of deep trust, you've finally arrived exactly where life was always trying to lead you. So as you sit quietly in this new stillness, ask yourself gently, honestly, and without judgment, what if the peace I've spent my whole life chasing was never meant to be chased at all? What if everything I thought I needed to force was patiently waiting for me to simply let go, breathe deeply, and allow it to flow effortlessly towards me? Because the quiet, powerful truth you've been seeking has been whispering to you all along. Life was never meant to be a fight. It was meant to be a dance. And perhaps now, after all the struggle, after all the gripping, after all the years of trying too hard, you're finally ready to trust the rhythm and let life lead. Because when you flow, life flows beautifully back.